Hi guys, it's Uldouz and welcome to the Uldouz Show. Today I have a very special guest. Her name is Helen Taylor and she's a vice president of impact at Exodus Cry. And I'm super excited to have her here because she's changed so many things all across the world and everything. She helps so many women and people of, sex crimes and sexual exploitation and all kinds of stuff. And also help ending sex trafficking or progress with the laws and all that kind of stuff. And she wrote a manual to help victims of sexual exploitation. So thank you so much for all of the great work that you've done. You've been around for like so many years working on this, and it's really impressive with all of the work that you have accomplished and all of the progress. And I know it's like so hard to like go against all of this stuff and try to help people and like change the laws and change things within sex trafficking and sex victims and all of that kind of stuff. So thank you so much for all of your hard work, and I'm so excited to talk about everything today, how we could change things and help everybody and everything like that. So yeah, welcome to the show.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on, Uldouz. And it's been so amazing, all our conversations that we've had up until this point. And this just feels like we're kind of inviting the world into what we've been talking about. And I know when I first heard about sex trafficking, it was in 2007. I'd never even heard the term before. Mm-hmm. And I think that from that point till now, there has been so much awareness, and so many organizations have started to really assist victims. And we're seeing some major cultural changes and progress in laws, which is incredible. And I feel like now we're having to address the next wave, which it relates to so much of what we're going to be like chatting through today about technology and image-based abuse. But yeah, our organization, we just really want to shift the culture. We want to shift things long-term and really like abolish sex trafficking, look at the laws that are the most effective in helping reduce trafficking around the world and really promote those. We made some films and documentaries, and then we do, like you mentioned, we assist real victims in every aspect of the sex industry, and anyone who's being trafficked and exploited and wants assistance in many different forms, we're there for them. So yeah, there's so much happening, so much that is really important to talk about right now.
Yeah, that's amazing. Like, I know when I do like an introduction, there's like a little tip of the iceberg, but there's so many different things that you guys do. I mean, I just watched like some of the documentaries on Netflix and stuff like that, and I was like, wow, there's all these issues going on that like we don't even think about, or like, since it's not happening to us, we don't even know about, so like the ones with the teenagers and the whole sex rape culture and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, thank you so much for all of the work that you guys do. Another thing that I wanted to kind of touch base on was people don't really understand the terms of sex trafficking. I think a lot of people, when they look at sex trafficking, they think like, oh, well, sex trafficking is something that happens to, some girls or women, like they get caught in an alley somewhere and get kidnapped to somewhere, and then all of a sudden now they're being trafficked, right? But can you just explain how sex trafficking, like most of the cases work, and then also how digital sex trafficking is also included in all of the traffic, and how that's included, so people can understand how digital trafficking, sex trafficking, and regular sex trafficking, how it's all kind of combined into one form of trafficking?
Such an important question, and I'm really glad you asked that off the offset, because there's so many different forms of trafficking and it looks really different. And for people to only have this one narrow idea of what trafficking looks like, that it involves a physical kidnapping, like force, fraud, or coercion are some of the umbrella terms used for what trafficking is related to. It doesn't mean going across state borders or across international borders necessarily. Someone could be trafficked within their own home, within their own community and town. Anyone who's under the age of 18 who's in the sex industry is automatically classified as a trafficking victim legally, because they're under 18, they're a child, they can't consent. Often you meet adults who were first exploited in the sex industry from a teenage age, and just because they're an adult doesn't necessarily mean that they're not still being exploited. Anyone who has a third party, like a pimp or a trafficker, taking all their money, that's much more common than people realize. They kind of assume that most people in prostitution are fully doing it, this just willingly and are making lots of money from it, or those even in the porn industry who are making lots of money from it. If there is an element of fraud, force, or coercion, that person would be legally classified as a trafficking victim. And what we're seeing now is these websites. It could be a pornography website, it can be several others like we're going to get into today. If they are monetarily profiting from the non-consensual exploitation of someone else. So for example, a couple of years ago, we launched a campaign called Trafficking Hub. It became its own global movement. It took off. There were over 300 organizations that signed on in support. So it really became a kind of independent movement. And a lot of trafficking victims or rape victims or underage victims of sexual assault, those assaults had been recorded against their consent and uploaded to these websites, and several porn sites, but also websites like Twitter and even Facebook and other sites found on Google. And what we began to really find and uncover through talking to scores of these women is that websites they believed that they were completely removed from all accountability, but they were making monetary profit from the exploitation of these women. There was also revenge porn situations. And so this then became classified under the umbrella term of sex trafficking, because they're now being trafficked not only by the person who uploaded the video in a non-consensual abusive way, but by these websites that are making significant money from the exploitation, and knowingly, because we would call them out on it and they were completely not paying attention. And we went after Pornhub initially because it's the most well-known porn site. And the company that owned Pornhub own hundreds of other sites as well. It's kind of like the king of the porn empire, so to speak.
And what's the name of this company? Is it MindGeek or?
MindGeek,
yeah.
Exactly. And they're based in Canada, but they're global. So most people have heard of Pornhub, but they hadn't heard of MindGeek.
Yeah.
And we basically, and many other organizations got on board too, to uncover that these sites didn't verify the age or consent of any of these videos. So people began connecting the dots and realized, like, people have had videos uploaded of them in completely non-consensual situations, and they are completely powerless to do anything about it. They'd often contacted the website scores of times, had been either ignored or told, sorry, like there's nothing we can do, or underage girls were having to try and prove that they were 13, 14 years old, and they didn't know how to go about this process. And so we were thinking, if that video or picture is on this website, it's already too late. We need to have laws put in place to protect and regulate this from even happening. And so anyway, a lot of victims and survivors are now suing these websites. And by the end of 2020, as I'm sure many of your listeners know, because it got mainstream global news, that Pornhub were forced to remove 10 million of their videos, 80% of their entire website, all their unverified content, because they literally had no idea how many hundreds or thousands of videos were underage or non-consensual, because they didn't bother to check. They removed the download button. So that was another thing. Not only could people watch these videos, they could download them. And then even if a survivor was able to get that video down, the person who downloaded it could upload it again. So we just were so horrified that this was something that the website was promoting. You can download these videos. You can reach, like, they didn't check the consent of the person who uploaded it or any of the people in the video. So that's something that we were really like calling for, that consent needs to be properly, meaningfully received. Otherwise, this is what happens. There's real exploitation on these websites.
Exactly. And like, just so everybody understands, you guys focused on like, you know, physical sex trafficking, all the stuff that we talked about. But because there's so much digital sex trafficking right now, and everything is online, everything is digital, that you guys are like, oh my God, like this is a big issue. And that's why when we connected, I was like, oh my God, we're on the same wavelength. Like, I don't even have to explain myself. And I think like when this stuff happened to me, I didn't even understand that I was being trafficked, you know? Like I knew everybody was profiting from me, and it's not just a little bit of money. People made millions and millions of dollars off of the views and my likeliness and, you know, uploading stuff. And not only did they make money and profit from it, but then also like I got cut off from making money. And then on top of that, I had to pay out of my own pocket to like get this stuff taken down, to a point where, you know, you would pay companies and stuff, you know, thousands and thousands of dollars, and then they couldn't even take it down. And then now I'm sitting here and like emailing these companies directly and reaching out to Google and try to do the takedown. So in my experience, you know, I would just like email them, and not just Pornhub, like all of them, consistently asking them to take down the content. The next day it will be uploaded again, and they would take days to take it down. And everybody that understands algorithm knows that all of the views and all of the profits are made the first couple days. So within 48 hours is when they made the most money from a video. Then from the 48 hours, a week is usually, you know, 5 days, 48 hours to 5 days is when they usually take something down, right? And then not just like Pornhub, but like all of the websites. And then they made all of the profit from there. But then let's say if they completely refuse, which a lot of them do, they don't even want to take down the link, they don't even acknowledge you, or they just refuse, right? So if they don't take it down, then you got to go to Google. So Google takes it down after a month, 6 weeks, 2 months, and that's when they made all of the profits. Of course, it's convenient to take something down when you already made all of the money off of it. And why is Google taking 6 weeks to take down something? And then another thing that I didn't even know till 7 years into this. So for 7 years, all of these websites been posting this video of me, knowing it's against my consent. It says hacked and leaked on the cover, or like at the top of the subject. Means, hello, it's against my consent, hacked and leaked. I don't want it there, right? So then it says my name too, meaning, oh, look at this girl, she has all these followers, whatever. So people are going to search it up and look it up, and you know, they're going to get their views from it. So after 7 years, because I know this one girl that does porn, I asked her, hey, do you know someone at Pornhub? And she was like, yeah, I know someone. I got connected. And then finally they implemented the fingerprint stamp, which means it's a digital video stamp that basically, you know, takes away, like you can't even upload the video anymore because it's a fingerprint stamp, right? So then I found out that, wow, all of these companies, all these years had a fingerprint stamp, including Google, but they don't want to implement it. So it's not just like, oh yeah, like it's a slap on the wrist, you know, like they didn't know or whatever. No, they all know and they're all in on it. And it's not just like me, it happens, or like people in the public eye. It happens to like little girls, underage girls. Like there was a 12-year-old girl that got raped on camera by her rapist, and then the rapist uploaded it and then later profited from it. So it's stuff like that. I didn't even realize that, oh my God, this is trafficking. It's basically rape, you know. And you know, I heard
they make money from, you know, the website traffic and views, and so their highest priority is views and content. So they want the maximum amount of content. And I mean, the whole moderation is a whole other side of it, but what has basically really come to light is with the advancements of technology and in the day and age of the internet, a lot of people have said, we're the guinea pigs. We're in the midst of this social experiment, and there are so many a lack of regulation in online, and especially when it comes to websites that are showing a lot of content, that if this content is non-consensual or not properly checked, which we've uncovered is most of it, that's really, really problematic. And so there needs to be, or like the laws almost need to kind of catch up with where we've got to at this point in history. The unique thing about this as well, that we've just, I've worked with trafficking victims for many, many years. Mm-hmm. And imagine like going through something that was either an assault, a trauma, or something that is very personal and private. Like we spoke to a lot of revenge porn victims. Mm-hmm. And that video or that picture is put online, and it's not just now an event or a memory that you're trying to move on from or heal from. Like a trafficking or rape victim, one person said, they've immortalized my trauma. These websites have immortalized the most traumatizing thing that ever happened to me, and now I can't move on. How can I move on when every day I'm having to obsessively check if someone's re-uploaded it to this website? Yeah. How can I move on when I feel like I'm being re-traumatized every time I see the views increase? People are watching that video of me being raped every day around the world. Yeah. And so a lot of people are like, well, these porn sites or these websites, free speech laws should cover a lot of their protections, and they're trying to classify this as a moral conversation. This isn't about morality. This is actually about human rights violations, illegal content, and people, specifically women, because this affects more women than men, being able to own their own image and not be victims to a situation like hacking or revenge porn, or someone uploading a non-consensual or illegal video of them and them being left powerless to do anything about it, and trying to come up against these big corporations and websites. There needs to be just more survivors, more people such as yourself being able to speak out about what happened to them, so that there's awareness, and that's how laws get changed. That's how these movements grow and swell. And so I'm just so glad that you and many others, it's like power to the survivors. Lawsuits have begun. Literally even 5 years ago, this wasn't really happening. Like, we're in the midst of history changing, and we need to maximize the impact of what's happening right now.
Yeah, exactly. So other than, the lawsuits, I think it's more important to get the laws to be changed, because it's so outdated. Like the laws are so outdated, and they haven't really updated with technology and what's going on. I don't even think they're really aware of that much what's going on technology wise, So the laws need to be updated too. So what are some of the work that you guys are doing to update the laws?
Yeah, well, there's a bill currently being drafted that would sort of amend some of the copyright laws that are currently in place, and would enable people to have more ownership over their own image. And this law is currently being drafted, and I believe that there'll be many more laws implemented around it. Sometimes when lawsuits happen, they use where it hurts most, right, in their pockets. Yeah. And so sometimes civil lawsuits help raise awareness of what the laws are that need to be changed. And so with the Trafficking Hub movement, we had different senators begin to reach out or say, like, well, now we know that all of this is happening. Now these survivors have made us aware through these lawsuits, partly we are able to see where the gaps are in the law. So I think both are equally important, both influence each other. But just like you said, if laws aren't being changed and written, then it remains the wild, wild west online. And so we want every website to have to verify the age and consent of the uploader and every person in the videos. And we also want people to be able to have more rights over their own images when it comes to copyright, and enable to sue websites and often porn sites for this. I remember speaking to one woman who was an actress who said someone has taken a bunch of my scenes from some of my other films I've been in and put together this video and put it on Pornhub. But these are romantic scenes from different films I've been in, but the way that they put it together and edited it and put it on Pornhub, she was like, I feel violated and I'm not okay with that, but I don't even know if I have any rights over that, because like, can someone just do that? And we're saying like, no, there needs to be much more regulation on some of these sites. I think a lot of people think that most porn sites are studio-based, produced porn. They think all of it's consensual, that all the performers sign contracts. And that's a whole other thing of how contracts and consent is really manipulated, even in that industry. But most of porn sites are uploads, like private uploads. And so that's how you have these titles that, like, if you're seeing a title that says like drunken unconscious girl gagged, or a revenge porn or leaked video, that should really alert you. Like, if this is a homemade video, how do you know? There's no way of not knowing that that is not a real thing. Like, it's not just something being acted in a studio. It is a homemade video that someone has made, and there needs to be regulation on that. So yeah, I'm so inspired by what you're doing, your petition, and Protect America's Daughters. People need to know how they can help change these laws.
Thank you. And then what I was thinking too is, it's very difficult for people to understand what they're looking at, right? So what are some like advice of what people, like, let's say some regular guy wants to go look at porn, and then they see something, like which one is like with consent and which ones are without consent, because there's so many without consent. So like, how would someone regularly that's watching porn know the difference?
Well, that is something that a question I posed to a journalist that interviewed me a little while back. I said, do you know how to discern between someone who's consenting or not? And I have also worked with a lot of survivors. I literally was speaking to one this morning who told me she signed a contract, but what was in the contract was completely different to what the porn director forced her to do on camera. It was a completely violent, exploitative scene, and completely different to what she thought she was signing a contract to. And so this is, and she was under the influence. And so a lot of, I just think that it's a question that, I can't answer, but it's a question that needs to be asked for people who are watching porn. Like, think about the real person in that video, think about the real human life. And if there's no way that you can even know what her situation was in life that led her to being there, if there's no way that you can know that she is giving her full consent, like, you should be thinking through that and wrestling with that. And so, I'm on the other side of it. I'm working with all the women who are exploited in porn and in the sex industry, and who are trying to fight for their rights back, who are in long-term therapy, often for decades. The type of violence that they experience has left a lot of the women I work with permanently scarred with post-traumatic stress disorder, comparable to frontline war veterans, physical damages of things that have been done to their body parts that have caused permanent damage. And it's an industry that is rife with violence and is rife with exploitation. And so we need to bring about the most safeguards possible when it comes to pornography. Like, there's so many regulations that haven't passed that need to, protections. Like, I mean, we're way over here, and there's a long way to go. There's so many regulations that we need to get past that are like at the bare minimum. And so we called the campaign that became this movement Trafficking Hub, because real trafficking was happening on these websites. Real trafficking victims were being impacted by that. And I think for a lot of people, it's the first time they'd ever even made that connection of trafficking and porn, or trafficking and videos they're seeing online. And psychologically, like, the kind of anxiety that it brings, that videos of you are out there without your consent, like that is such a violation that's re-traumatizing.
Yeah, and that, I think that's what's so hard for people to understand, because you see someone on a porn site, you automatically dehumanize them and think, oh, they chose this and they wanted this, and I feel good looking at it because it's satisfying to me. But they don't even think like, oh my God, like this person is against their consent. Or like when it says like hacked and leaked or rape, all these keywords, they don't, I don't think they want to even understand that this is a real situation. They want to just enjoy their little time on the porn sites and jerk off or whatever they're doing, and not even realize that these are real humans and this is real situations, and this is a real issue right here. So I think that's what's so important about this whole conversation today, and us doing this interview, is because I wanted to make sure that people understand what kind of damages are going on behind the scenes, or what's really going on behind the scenes. And not only, like you said, like on the camera they're being traumatized and they have to relive it every single day, but it's literally like a life sentence because it never goes away. How are you supposed to maintain a regular job and even a job in the public eye, because everything great that you do would always be overshined by this other situation, and people are dehumanizing you consistently and putting all the blame back on you, like, oh well, you shouldn't have taken those pictures or video. Well, I didn't. Or even if I would have, like for instance, like what if you would have done it? What, you're not supposed to be a grown adult or whatever, like, and enjoy yourself, like, and what are the odds that you're gonna get trafficked? And why are people like making so many excuses for predators to live free and not putting all of the blame on predators and not on the victims, basically? Yeah. So that's what's so crazy to me, because not only do they dehumanize victims, but they're dehumanizing people in the sex industry. They're dehumanizing little girls, like anything you could think of. And they're trying to justify it by, like, for instance, in my situation, it's, well, you shouldn't have taken bikini pictures, you were asking for it. And I was like, who would have known? Like, I grew up in Sweden and I'm Iranian, and people thinking that I'm beautiful at a young age and I have a nice body was like, what? Like, I grew up in Sweden and everybody was tall, skinny, and blonde, and like I was not the like image of beauty at all. Like, I didn't even think I was beautiful until I moved outside of Sweden, and people are like, you should try modeling and this and that. So then, yeah, I did some, bikini pictures and here and there, and I didn't think anything of it. I just thought it was cool. Wow, people think I'm beautiful, right? Right. And then, like my following grows and all this stuff. I do modeling, I do acting, and next thing you know, I get hacked. And what the hell? Like, I didn't even know that was going to happen to me. And even if I would have protected myself, which I did so nicely, like it still happened to me. And I'm like a control freak and a perfectionist. Like, I try my best to do everything the right way. I never broken any laws or done anything, that's bad. And it, like, I didn't even want to do Playboy because I was like, once you go nude, that's it for you, and I don't want to do Playboy. I don't want to do this. I don't want to go nude. And what people don't understand is those type of people target people that don't want to go that route. And that's the whole thing, to see the thing or the person that doesn't want to do that. That's the big
leaked. Like that's the draw of it being leaked. That's how they can market that. And the fact that your iCloud was hacked, it was like your privacy was robbed. It's almost as though someone came into your house and robbed your belongings, that they're still then selling them in front of you, and you can't do anything to get that back, and that the injustice of that. And a lot of, like, we spoke with many revenge porn victims, and sometimes it was their husband or their ex-boyfriend. So sometimes it was photos or videos that they'd sent to their husband or partner, and then after a breakup, that person turns around and can use it in a really abusive way against them. Sometimes even dox them, like put their real name on this video and then put it online on Pornhub. We spoke to one woman who, she was so traumatized from this happening, and the fact that her details were also like made available through this video online, and she was having people contact her, phone her. She left the country. She moved out of the US because she said, I feel completely terrorized.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, it's an evil done against women by perpetrators, and also by these companies that then profit off of that. So there's being exploitation is happening from two angles. And until people who are really affected start talking about it, I think a lot of people are really unaware. Most people don't even consider that their iCloud could be hacked, or that they send a picture to someone that they trust, and then it's like one of the youngest victims we spoke to, who she's an adult now, but she was 13 years old when her boyfriend persuaded her to send a nude video to her. 13 years old, and he put that on Pornhub. And so she's a victim of revenge porn as a 13-year-old girl. It completely like wrecked her high school experience and life. She dropped out of school. She turned to drugs. She became suicidal. Like, it completely hijacked her life. Like, this is one of the most greatest forms of violence and evil. And so we want to call people out who are participating in doing that. And we also, as you said, Uldouz, we want to see the laws changed so that this can't continue to happen. More protections need to be in place. Absolutely.
Yeah, and then what's even weirder is like the whole world in my situation was sitting around just watching it all happen. Like, they're like, oh yeah, this is happening right now. And Google knew about it, the porn sites knew about it, and it's not just me, it's like big name celebrities involved, and everybody just sitting and watching all of these women just getting raped and trafficked. Like, it's weird to me. Like, I was like, why is everybody just sitting here and not doing anything? And it's like, it's such a new type of crime too, especially when it happened to me in 2014, that like, it was like you're watching something illegal happen, and you know it's without consent, you know it's against the law, but there's no laws against it. Like, even the hacker that got in prison, like, for all of these hackings, like, there's no strict laws against him committing a sex crime. It's just a hacking. They just consider it like, oh yeah, it's another hacking, no big deal, slap on the wrist, and then he's back out again after a year and a half, like nothing happened. So that's what's so strange to me. Like, why are these people not being, convicted sex offender and then been put on a sex offender list? Because they are committing sex crimes. They're not just committing like a hack or uploading or whatever. And with these sites, they're not even like, you just need an email address to upload whatever you want. There's no ID or anything, like, oh, you want to be a content creator for this website, but if you do actual porn, then you have to like sign all the documents and make sure you're not under the influence and have your ID and, like, show that it's, with consent. But even then, you're saying that like there's so many cases that they might sign something, then something else happens, which totally makes sense, because like, this world is just, it's crazy.
And I know that most of the people who are listening to this, they'll feel as equally outraged about all of this as we are. And I think that sometimes I just have to remind myself, like, most people in the public, I think most people, when they hear about it or hear about it talked in this way that we're framing it, they realize, oh yeah, that these kind of things, this is not okay. But until we started and others began calling out Pornhub, no one even questioned. This is just the way it's done. And so sometimes it really takes people standing up, using their voice and their platform like you are, and saying, look, this is what's happening. This is the repercussions. It's not okay, right? And people are like, yeah, this isn't okay. This is actually really problematic and illegal, and there needs to be accountability. And this is, how change happens, how movements start. We started a petition that got over 2 million signatures.
Wow.
We created this 2-minute animated video that just explained in a couple of minutes what was happening. It went viral. Over 34 million people watched it in a few days. And that really encouraged me. Like, people are feeling as equally outraged about this as we are. And so they sometimes just need to know, they need to be aware. And so it's, when journalists like Nick Kristof of the New York Times, it was on the front page. And that was, I really think it was a tipping point. And there needs to be many more tipping points. And often it comes from individuals who've been personally affected, like having the courage to share their story. Like, without actual survivors and victims speaking out, people don't know and don't understand the actual impact that this kind of thing is happening on real people.
Yeah. And I think that's the whole issue too, because when it happened to me, everybody was like, don't talk about it, because if you talk about it, you bring more awareness to it. And then people will search it up more, and it will be like constantly going, like people talking about it and looking it up and that kind of thing. So I think a lot of victims are being told not to talk about it, and survivors are being told not to talk about it. But the trick here is we need to change the laws. And if they're ready, it would be great if they step forward and like help the movement, but obviously if they're ready, because it took me 8 years to get here and it hasn't been easy. Like, it took me that long to be like, I'm ready to talk about it, or I'm ready for people, if they even said something negative, to be able to like, okay, like they're just in another headspace. They couldn't understand, But
I think of Harvey Weinstein, that case, and when it was like one case with a few survivors who spoke out, and that was what really spiraled and inspired the Me Too movement for other women to be like, me too. But not just me, talking about Harvey Weinstein, about similar experiences of sexual assault. And so this is kind of a new form of sexual assault, and the real trauma that it brings. Image-based sexual abuse, non-consensual content being weaponized against women. And my hope is that it really does escalate into a sort of another wave of a Me Too movement, and that people who are consuming pornography are aware of this as well. And our current focus as a organization is actually on protecting minors from accessing pornography, because a lot of these adult sites that have very often like graphic and violent videos, any child who has access to a smartphone or a computer can access this. Most sites don't even have a click if I am over 18 button. We've had a lot of teens and young people just talk to us about the impact of being exposed to hardcore graphic porn at a young age, and how a lot of sexual assault nurses have told us that most minor sexual abuse cases right now are being perpetrated by other minors, and those other minors are watching porn and then acting out that abuse on their neighbors, their younger siblings.
Wow,
it's things that it's too intense and unmentionable to even share on your podcast.
No, but I think it's good that we talk about all of the ugly sides and the real truth about it, because it's like, I think, like I said, like people are so quick to just dehumanize everything. And if they're like having pleasure from it or whatever, they're not even thinking about all of the different factors. So even these little kids, they're watching porn and they don't really understand what they're watching. And then they're like committing all these assaults on other people, not understanding. Like it's like, oh my God, what are we doing here? Like, this is so wrong. Like there's so many steps in the laws and in the websites and like technology. all of these things that need to be done and it's not being done. But
regulations. I mean, we're saying big porn is like big tobacco, and that it, like, big tobacco had so little regulation for so many years, and as more and more, harms became the harms of smoking became awareness, and we're saying, like, if you have to show ID to buy tobacco or alcohol, you should be able to show some form of ID when buying porn. In the past, it was, you had to show ID to purchase a magazine, but now online it's readily available to any children. And because, as we know, these websites, they just want more traffic, and so they have not put any procedures in place to protect kids from accessing their sites, because they make money from kids accessing their sites and then being lifelong subscribers. And so we just feel that that's another important regulation that needs to happen for children, to protect children from seeing this. So it's taking this kind of wild west industry, seeing all the exploitation and non-consensual and even underage, the underage child abuse factor is a whole other side of things. But I think a lot of people think, oh, that's just on the dark web. They wouldn't think, oh, on a website like Pornhub, there are real underage young teenagers on these videos mixed in with adults. And how is a moderator going to be able to discern who's 15, 16 or 18, unless these laws really ensure that kind of protection is enforced? So this needs to be a movement. It's something that everyone can put their name on the dotted line against. I think this is human rights violations we're talking about, and it's something that, no matter your perspective on on porn or on a lot of these other issues, things that you and I are talking about right here, these should be, it feels black and white to me.
Me too. And then one more thing. So I actually looked at the bill that you guys, with changing the law and everything about the copyright and everything. So another aspect of all this that nobody's really even thinking about is that people can take a picture of anyone from online or wherever they feel like and actually place it on a video or a picture of pornography or a naked person, and then later upload it, and people will actually think, because now technology, they can actually make your face look like the actual person that's having sex,
exactly,
just off of a picture, and it could be taken from anywhere, and it's happening to a lot of people now, and that's another issue right there. And like, people think that, oh yeah, this can't happen to me because I'm so careful, and all of whatever. It can happen to anyone. Like, literally, you could just have one picture.
To me. Yeah, happened to me. I had I exposed a trafficking ring in Russia a few years ago, and we worked with law enforcement, and that was a whole kind of operation. And the traffickers that we exposed, and their faces were on camera, and they were very publicly exposed. Before they went to prison, they found me online and were so furious that I'd kind of basically exposed their trafficking activity from, I'd met several of the victims that they were trafficking through this undercover operation we were working on during the World Cup in 2018. And in response, they threatened to sue me. They sent me all these just like horrible messages and created porn of me that put my face on all these pornographic images. And at the time I was like, you know what, you're going to prison and I don't care. But I just thought, this is a really nasty way to try and like weaponize and terrorize women. And they made a fake Facebook account, and I thought they're probably sending these images to adding all my friends and sending these images to them. And it just kind of made me angry that this is, it's one thing, that needs to be a kind of a crime that you can report. And luckily I was able to report and get that Facebook account taken down. But when it's then uploaded onto porn sites, and porn sites are then making money from this, and it's been downloaded and shared, like, we need to be talking about and thinking about these things now. And so I'm really glad that you even brought that up, because I think that these laws need to make provisions for that and anticipate this is where it's going. How do we prevent that from happening as well? And enabling people to best report if their image is being violated in a non-consensual way, whether it's a real video that was uploaded against their consent or a fake video created of them that was uploaded, that should not be allowed.
Exactly. And like another thing is people probably think, oh, this is a woman's or girls issue. Like, is that like what you're experiencing with Exodus Cry, or can you explain that?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I'm sure this has happened to you know, some men and boys as well, and so definitely want to acknowledge that in this conversation. But I think the reality is, and that we all know, this is an issue that mostly affects women. All the victims that spoke to us and came to us, well, aside from, there were a couple of boys actually, but the vast majority were women. And we want men to be able to talk about this and feel as angered about this as we are. You know, our founder at Exodus Cry is a man, and I think whenever there are men who are in this space who are really advocating and fighting alongside women, it's really powerful, because we need men who are good allies in this and who really care about this and want and feel as angry as we do that this is happening.
Yeah.
And so there are a lot of good men out there who are wanting to be part of this movement and are helping draft these bills, and our lawyers who are taking on cases. And so yeah, good is being done, but there's still a long way to go. But I just think it's really good that we're even talking about this. And I know I'm learning so much as well, like from more traditional trafficking cases. The last couple of years have been just learning a lot more about what it looks and feels like for women who are victims of image-based abuse online, and how we can take on these companies that are profiting from that and say, you're not allowed.
Exactly. I know. I love everything that you guys are doing. And like, I have to like remind myself too that, oh my God, this is like, there's so many people that are like, you know, helpful in this whole matter, and they actually want to see change too, because it happens to all kinds of people. And maybe the little boys or men aren't talking about it as much because they're so shamed about it. Like, you know, and even with little boys getting molested and like, you know, raped, or situations, or men getting raped, it's more shameful for them to talk about and discuss, but it does happen to a lot of men by other men, or, you know, even women. So it's like, it's important to talk about it for everyone. And, you know, this could happen to your daughter, to your sister, to your little boy, to your little girl, to, you know, your mother, your family member, your girlfriend, your wife, you know. So there's a lot of factors in this, and there's a lot of factors, even though like this happened to me, my story is just one version. Then there's so many different versions, and you know, like they're all horrible, and like really like horror stories, you know. And I'm just like, wow, this is just crazy. So I'm really happy that me and you connected, and we're on the same like wavelength, and you know, we're going towards the right direction of helping other people so they don't like fall victims, or you know, if they are victims, what to do next, kind of thing, to kind of push through that. So,
and if anyone who's listening who has experienced this and is like, I want to know what my legal options are, and I want to maybe join a lawsuit, then like you really can contact us. And we're also providing therapy for people who've been through this, whether that was through a website or just experienced sex trafficking. And so just know there's help out there, not just our organization, but many other organizations are really fighting to provide services and justice for survivors. And let's see these laws changed. And you can, our website is exoduscry.com if anyone wants to find out more of the other work that we're doing. And our most recent film, Raised on Porn, is on YouTube. It just got 3 million views.
yay, that's good.
So it's good. The conversation is getting out there and awareness is happening. And we have another petition, and people need to sign your petition as well if they haven't.
Yeah, like this, like we need to get this out there more. So everybody sign all the petitions there is, watch all the documentaries and go to exoduscry.com and check everything out and sign all the petitions.
All of that, definitely.
Yeah, all of the good stuff. But thank you so much for doing this. I like really appreciate you taking time and talking about all of these issues. And there's so many more that we didn't even discuss, but yeah, like this is just tip of the iceberg. So yeah, but we're gonna change it. We're gonna help other people so it doesn't happen, and help other victims.
A few people to come forward and join that too. And yeah, I think that there's not enough support out there for revenge porn specifically, and so I'd really love to see more like a hotline for that particular issue, and just laws that cover all possible exploitation. We need to get ahead of what's happening, and just there needs to be more regulations.
So in Egypt, actually, they started a hotline because there was a girl that committed suicide, underage girl. And the two men that actually uploaded these images of her like being naked, they did the morphing thing where they just took her picture and added it to another person's naked body and basically, share those images. And she kept telling her parents and everyone that that's not her. And nobody wanted to believe her. So she finally committed suicide. And, it's too late now, but they at least they imprisoned the guys or the boys that were doing that. And then they have a hotline now for crimes like that, or victims or whatever, whoever needs help. So it's just crazy to me that we're in the US and it happens all the time and there's no hotlines here. I know
that. There's lots of general assault, like sexual assault hotlines, like RAIN is a great one, but I do think that having a hotline that's specifically for this situation and that can directly help people to try and get those videos or photos taken down, or just the specific like counseling or services or legal support that they need.
I think it's also like when in my situation, like I talked about it, and there's been people that have been so understanding, so giving and caring, and they totally understand. Like for instance, I will go somewhere and out of nowhere I just start crying because I see like somebody uploaded something again, or somebody said something, or all of these bullies are putting me in a group chat so I could see like how they're making fun of me, of this stuff being leaked and all that kind of stuff. And it was years and years after it even happened, but like I would see that, and out of nowhere I would just start crying. Like I would just be in an event or something and I would just start crying, and no matter how hard I would tell people that like it was against like my consent, or like I didn't want this to happen, they wanted to portray it as like she wanted that to happen. It was like a Kim Kardashian thing, or and that's another thing, they try to minimize what really happens to the victims. Like they make it seem like it's not really, you weren't really trafficked because nobody kidnapped you, or you weren't actually raped because the person wasn't there in person doing it. Or imagine the actual rape victim, how you're minimizing them. And I'm not minimizing anyone, I'm just saying my experience of what I went through, and I can relate to other people and what they went through. And like with a little girl, where it's happening to a little girl, like this happened when I was an adult, but if I was a little girl, I don't think I would have survived it. Like knowing that I have a whole life ahead of me, with this being brought up every single day, every time I would do something great, it will get overshined by that. Everybody will bring it back up again, like, oh yeah, she did this amazing thing, but like look at this video, ha ha ha, like and it's just crazy to me. Imagine being a 12 or 13-year-old girl and you're just like starting your life, and right off the bat something like this happens in high school, everybody, and you can't have a job, or you can't go to school, or like I literally isolated myself for years. And but just imagine like being that little girl and like going through that. So I think there's a lot of little girls that are like committing suicide because of it. But like we need hotlines because this is such an important issue. But then, nobody, it's hard for other people to understand. So I think there also needs to be training in this subject, like, so yeah, there's a lot of factors that goes along with it.
And education is a whole other aspect that I know you and I have talked about as well, and how, in schools. And a friend of mine, Russ Tuttle, he runs this program called Be Alert, and I'm sure there's other similar programs in schools. And he goes to middle school and high school students and really teaches them about image sharing, and how like texting and new texting among teenagers is so high. So many, boys are seeing porn, and then they're asking their female classmates, pressurizing them, like that 13-year-old girl that I mentioned earlier. This is really commonly happening, and it's so unfair and unjust, because once that boy, or it could be a girl, but
yeah,
once that person has the image of the other person, they can use that as a weapon and it's used to shame them, to blackmail them, to, just like you said, every time they're trying to move on, or it's this like shadow over their identity, and that's so wrong. And it's a form of bullying that's so intense and so potent, and it's really not okay. Like my colleague Lila calls this it's a form of terrorism against women and girls and young people.
mm-hmm.
But then there needs to be education in high schools of people just seeing the impact that this kind of behavior can have on other people, so that it's not just about protect yourself and don't send new pictures of yourself. Like, yes, that's one aspect, but we need to train like people in bullying, and young boys in how to treat women with dignity and respect.
Yeah, it starts early on. Like you need to nip it in the bud like early on, and then just kind of like educate everyone so everybody understands, everybody's on the same page. And I think also it's important to educate people of, God forbid, if this does happen, what are the next steps? How do you take something down from Google? How do you protect yourself? Those kind of steps as well, because like I said, like you don't want to talk about it because you're just being so shamed consistently about it. So it's just like over and over and over. And in my specific scenario too, all of the people that I worked with, they use that as an ammo kind of situation to like kind of get rid of their competition. So like they use that as like a tool to be like, oh, don't work with this girl, she like leaked this tape to become famous, and all of these lies, where I'm like, well, if I wanted to do porn, I would have just went straight and done porn, or I would have done straight nudes, but they would go and spread all these lies, or they would continuously spread the video more, so it's kind of the same like high school mentality, so imagine a little girl going through school and all the little mean girls and the mean boys and the bullying, and it's just like they continuously spread it and talk about it. So it's not just the stuff being leaked on the internet, but it's also it being shared within people and the groups, and everybody looking at you all weird, and they all seen you in this different light that was private. So I think that those aspects too are like now being discussed, but yeah, there's a lot of aspects that needs to get brought up. But I won't hold you up anymore longer. Thank you so much for doing this with me. And where can everybody find you except for exoduscry.com?
Our handle is just at Exodus Cry, and we just have a lot content that's really educational and important and ways people can get involved. And then our films are on YouTube. Nefarious is on global sex trafficking. Raised on Porn is also on YouTube.
Yeah.
Our film Liberated is on Netflix, and we've got a few more films in the pipeline coming out this year. So we really believe in the power of story and films to educate and shift the culture too. And then we're doing activism campaigns and legal reform, as well as providing services to victims and survivors. So we're just very grateful to connect with you, and it's just been a real pleasure being able to talk through some of these things and hear more about your story and the work that you're doing. And we want to have you on our podcast too sometime this year.
Yeah, for sure. We're gonna do it all. So, and if you could send me all of the links of, all of the social media and even the Netflix specials, the names and everything, and maybe the phone number. I don't know if whatever else you want to add, include. If you can send that, I could put that in the description. So everybody could go in the description. All of the links and everything will be there for you. So it's easier to find. So thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thank you.
I want to give you a big hug, and then I want to go and start giving everybody hugs. I want to be like, thank you so much. This is so amazing.
We're in this together, linking arms. This is one fight, and your strength and passion and conviction on this is really inspiring and powerful, and we feel the same way. So we have allies in each other for sure. Yeah, for sure. You're like an angel, because this happened to me, but this didn't even happen to you, and you just took it on yourself to be like, you know what, this is horrible. We need to fix this. This is amazing, So so I'm like, okay, here we go. We got an actual angel right here that's helping everybody, without it even happening to her. For me, it happened, but I'm advocate for it. The courage it takes for you to speak out when it's happened to you, it can feel very personal and vulnerable. And so if we get pushback and criticism and things, people say untrue things about us in the media, but I feel like it's, I can take hits. I think it's much harder when survivors get ridiculed or told that they're lying, or we want, I think, survivors and allies, because I'll happily take hits for survivors. I'd rather take the hit than them, because they're already dealing with enough trauma. Yeah, for sure. So you got to take all my hits now. Here you go. I'm like, Helen Taylor, she's gonna take all my hits, you guys. Hit her up. Send them our way. Yeah, she's like putting the cape on, All right, but thank you so much again. I'll talk to you. All right. Yeah, we'll stay in touch. I'll follow up. All right, bye. Bye.